yesterday. There are actually two separate Senate hearings into what the hell is going on over at Boeing. There were two different Boeing whistleblowers who raised extraordinary concerns about what they reportedly saw when they were in Boeing's employ. Here is a snippet of one of the whistleblowers. This is Ed Pearson, who says in no uncertain terms, Boeing is engaged in a criminal cover-up with regard to safety violations. Let's take a listen.
Boeing routinely states that their airplanes meet or exceed all safety standards. This is untrue and misrepresents the safety of the airplanes. The company illegally removed thousands of quality control inspections on individual airplanes without the FAA's knowledge and without the knowledge of the airlines. Although many of these inspections have been reinstated, hundreds of airplanes have left Boeing factories without those thousands of inspections. My last point is the Department of Justice and FBI relied on the slanted results of the first MAX accident investigation to develop an illegal and unjust deferred prosecution agreement. The NTSB chair reiterated to Congress last week that Boeing has said there are no records documenting the removal of the Alaska Airlines door. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is a criminal cover-up. Records do, in fact, exist. I know this because I've personally passed them to the FBI.
Now, I want to underscore what he's saying right there, because these hearings are, of course, directly about that Alaska Airlines door plug, which came out mid-flight. Terrifying. Thank God no one was injured. You know, really by the grace of God, it could have been that everyone on board that aircraft was deceased. And in the context of that investigation, Boeing said, oh, some of these safety records, I don't know what happened to them. We misplaced them. Oops. Oops, just an honest mistake here. And he's saying very directly, no, no, no. You didn't misplace them. Those records existed. And I know, and I'm calling this a criminal cover-up directly because I handed those records to the federal government. So an extraordinary claim there, Saagar. There was another whistleblower, Sam Salapur, a Boeing quality engineer, who testified to Josh Hawley their planes are not safe. And he claims he was threatened and silenced by the company as well. Let's take a listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
Are these planes safe?
Right now, I would not. You know, it's like an earthquake. You know, the big earthquake is coming, but when that hits the building that, you know, let's say if you're talking of a building, have to be prepared to accommodate that type of a, let's say, shakeup. You know, it has to be built properly. Right now, from what I've seen, the airplanes are not being built per spec and per requirement.
So your testimony is the 787 line and the 777, the 777 line are you think are not.
Well,
not safe.
they are doing stuff that increases the risk factors. Okay, when you increase the risk factors, you know, it's not just one. You are doing stress concentrations. That those stress concentrations, like, you know, breaking a paper clip, you know, you do it once or twice, it doesn't break, but it breaks at some time. As the plane gets older, you know, all of these things that, you know, you took, you know, you said it's not a safety issue, it becomes a safety issue.
And the company's response to you was to threaten you?
Threaten you, sideline you, you know, transfer you.
You raised concerns about the 787, and so they transferred you to the 777, right?
Well, yes. Initially, they just cut me off of all the meetings. They took my name out, and then so I was just doing nothing. I wasn't informed of what. Then they transferred me, and they do it pretty stealthy. Oh, we have a job over here. We want you to go over there. So they move you down there, and, you know, I come from like 40 years of engineering background. So when I see, and I've taken a lot of stress classes, even though I'm not a specialist on that, but when there's a problematic area that you see, you can recognize.
Wow. So let's put this last tear sheet up on the screen. He made an additional comment that really jumped out at me. I'm sure you'll find it noteworthy as well, Saagar. He said, quote, in regards to the retaliation, I was sidelined, I was told to shut up, I received physical threats. My boss said, I would have killed someone who said what you said in that meeting. Senator Richard Blumenthal, in addition, asked about, hey, what about the FAA? What if we hired more inspectors? Would that help? And one of these individuals, who was a former FAA engineer, said, yeah, that would help. But the attitude right now at the FAA is that Boeing dictates to the FAA. So, I mean, these are deep-seated problems here, and the consistent issue that comes up very clearly over and over again is it was about profits over safety. They were willing to cut corners. There are some horrifying examples about employees who were jumping on plane parts to try to bend them so they would fit in. And now you think you're going to be safe on that airplane? That they have completely lost their way. And the FAA, has become really captured by this corporation and effectively has outsourced their own regulatory capabilities to the company itself.
Yeah, he says that Boeing should ground every single 787 Dreamliner which is in the sky. He says 1,000 Boeing planes are currently in a danger of structural failure because of premature fatigue. On the 787 specifically, he says that tiny gaps in plane parts have not yet been properly filled. According to him, they have not been properly addressed 98.7% of the time, and that debris is now lodged in 80% of these unfilled gaps, which could easily result in a fire. He claims, as you said, that people are literally using their feet to jump on top of pieces of the airplane to get them to align, and that none of the stress testing which is happening, which is leaving catastrophic gaps of error. Combine that with the criminal cover-up safety documents that the other gentleman said that he's given to the FBI, and it's like, what more evidence do we need here? We need a complete national takeover of Boeing until we can figure out what the hell is going on.
That's right.
Especially because we are the ones paying, back to the tax situation. Yes, Boeing makes a lot of money in their private business. They also wouldn't survive without the US government. We've bailed this company out 1 million times since its inception and recently in 2020. We fund huge portions of their business through the military-industrial complex. It's not just passengers, which are unsafe, it's our service members. And then look at the F-35 program, which was a complete nightmare. Not Boeing, but still, it's a similar situation. My point is just that commercial aviation, there's 100 million Americans who step foot on a plane at some point in a year, on a yearly basis. That's 1/3 of the entire country. And there's a great shot that you're stepping on a Boeing aircraft. I've been counting recently, 7 out of the 10 last planes that I've been on were Boeing. And it's like in every single one of these, you just look at that and you're like, well, hope it works out. And yes, commercial aviation is very safe statistically and all of that, but the catastrophic failures which we see today were not ever part of commercial aviation before. And this is all a result of the pursuit of profit, the sacrifice of safety, the lack of government regulation, and just a complete criminal cover-up now at this point, because lives are not just at stake, lives have been lost. Hundreds of people died as a result of Boeing's mistake not just that long ago. And now this is the second instance in just a matter of 5 years where people's lives directly put at risk as a result of a failure at this company.
And the number of safety instances that are stacking up at this point, I mean, it has been essential to the commercial airline industry that they have this pristine safety record. Because guess what? People feel a little nervous getting on an airplane and flying so high up there and thinking about what could happen. And the only reason that prospect works is because you can look at it statistically and say, I'm actually more at risk when I get in my car. Well, what if that calculus starts to change? And then, to your tax point, a modest proposal. How about you send our tax dollars, instead of going to bomb babies, how about you send our tax dollars to have a real FAA that has the capability to actually regulate and not just say, hey, Boeing, are you doing a good job? Okay, great work, keep it up. Because that's what we have right now. And by the way, this is a problem across the board with regulatory agencies. This was a whole sort of like neoliberal ideological project of we're effectively going to gut these agencies. They're not going to have the technical know-how to even, credibly regulate these complex industries, let alone the manpower or the funding. So that's part of why this story is so important. It's important on its own, just because of how significant this one company is and how entangled it is with the American taxpayer and all of our lives. But it's also important because it's so symbolic of a deeper rot that really exists in almost every industry that you care to dig into. So extraordinarily significant testimony that we heard yesterday. And of course, we can't forget about the prior whistleblower who raised similar, very significant concerns about a lack of attention to detail, about taking parts that had been discarded as, these are defective, pulling them out of the heap and putting him into airplanes. And then lo and behold, while he's in the middle of testifying, he is quote unquote found dead. And at least some of his coworkers do not believe that he committed suicide. Still a lot of questions around what the hell happened there. So kudos to these two men who know that their safety is at risk. There's no doubt about it.
And as he said, he literally said his boss said that he would have killed somebody who said what he said. So I guess we should just state for the record, neither of these men are suicidal. And I hope that they have some records and all of that ready, and that their families and all of that are prepared for their safety as well.
Yeah, indeed. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.